It always starts with whispers. Late at night, behind locked doors and closed curtains, when the world outside sleeps and only the wind moves through the streets. That's when the secret meetings begin. For as long as America has existed, there have been others living in its shadows. Men and women who believed they alone held the truth, that they alone could shape the fate of the nation from behind invisible walls. They called themselves brotherhoods, orders, societies. Their meetings were candlelit. Their members sworn to silence. Their motives always blurred between loyalty and madness. And while the world around them built cities, railroads, and democracies, they built something else entirely. A hidden America. One stitched together with symbols, handshakes, codes, and blood oaths. You see, the story of America as secret societies isn't just about mystery. It is about power. About who really ran the country while everyone else believed they were free. It began in the 18th century, when the young colonies were still raw, chaotic, and desperate for structure. Out of that chaos emerged the first of these mysterious groups, the Freemasons. They claimed to be a brotherhood of builders, moral men dedicated to reason, enlightenment, and charity. But to outsiders, they seemed like something else, a cult wrapped in secrecy. Their symbols, the compass, the all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid, began appearing on buildings, monuments, even money. George Washington himself was a Mason. So were Benjamin Franklin and Paul Revere. The Masons were everywhere and nowhere. To their members, they were guardians of moral virtue. To their critics, they were puppet masters pulling America's invisible strings. And that fear only grew in 1826, when a man named William Morgan, a former Mason, disappeared after threatening to publish their secrets. Morgan's body was never found, but his disappearance set off a wildfire. Across the country, outrage exploded. Newspapers claimed the Masons had murdered him to protect their rituals. Entire towns turned on them. And from that outrage was born one of the strangest political movements in American history. The Anti-Masonic Party, the first third party ever formed in the U.S., created solely to destroy a secret society. Imagine that. A country so terrified of hidden influence that it built a political machine to hunt it down. But while the Masons were being chased out of the light, a new breed of secret society began to thrive in the dark. Societies that weren't about morality or philosophy. They were about control. In the 1800s, as America expanded westward, towns and cities became breeding grounds for fraternal orders, each one stranger than the last. There were the Odd Fellows, who performed elaborate initiation ceremonies involving skeletons and blindfolds, claiming to promote friendship and charity. There were the Knights of the Golden Circle, who plotted in secret rooms to expand slavery into Latin America and create a vast Confederate empire. And then there were the ones so obscure, so bizarre, that history barely remembers them. Like the Order of the White Camellia, a Southern secret order that emerged after the Civil War, shrouded in hoods and robes, preaching white supremacy and terror. Or the Molly Maguires, a secret network of Irish coal miners in Pennsylvania, who fought back against brutal working conditions through sabotage, assassinations, and coded messages written in chalk on mine walls. Each society reflected something dark and hidden about America's own soul: the hunger for power, the fear of outsiders, the need to belong to something secret, even if it was dangerous. And then came the most infamous of them all, a group that would take secrecy to an entirely new level of violence: the Ku Klux Klan. Born from the ashes of the Civil War, the Klan wasn't just a hate group, it was a secret society disguised as one. Its founders were former Confederate officers who cloaked their identities in ritual and myth. They called themselves knights, their gatherings conclaves, their leaders grand wizards and titans. To outsiders, they were monsters. But to themselves, they were part of a sacred brotherhood, preserving what they believed to be the true order of the South. And like every secret society before them, they used darkness as both weapon and shield. The same country that had once feared Masonic temples now feared burning crosses. But not all secret societies were built on hate. Some were simply strange. There was the ancient Order of Hibernians, a brotherhood of Irish immigrants protecting their people from discrimination. The Improved Order of Red Men, which mimicked Native American rituals, but was made up entirely of white men playing at tribal mysticism. And then, perhaps the strangest of all, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University. Founded in 1832, its members were the sons of America's elite, presidents, bankers, future power brokers. Their rituals were bizarre and morbid, mock funerals, blood oaths, and cryptic symbols carved into stone tombs. Some said they communed with spirits. Others believed they pledged loyalty not to a country, but to each other, a lifelong pact that would shape the corridors of American power for centuries. Because the truth is this, the story of America's secret societies isn't about isolated clubs or eccentric rituals. It's about a web of power, influence, and secrecy that stretches from the dusty lodges of frontier towns to the ivy-covered universities of the East. And while most people forgot about them, they never really disappeared. Because in America, the shadows never stay empty for long. They simply wait for the next generation of believers, schemers, and dreamers to step in and light the candles once more. And if you think that was strange, wait until you hear what came next. A secret so powerful, it didn't just try to shape America, it tried to rewrite its destiny. It didn't stop with the Masons or the Klansmen. As the 1800s slid into the modern age, the nation began to hear new whispers, this time about something far darker than fraternity lodges and political oaths. The word Illuminati began slipping into American ears. Imported from Europe, where conspiracy pamphlets claimed that shadowy philosophers had tried to overthrow monarchies and replace them with a new world order. The myth found a perfect home in a restless young republic obsessed with liberty and terrified of losing it. Preachers warned from pulpits that unseen puppet masters were already here. Newspapers hinted that the same symbols carved into old Masonic halls appeared on government seals and dollar bills. The idea took root. Perhaps America's leaders were part of something hidden, something eternal. By the time the Industrial Revolution roared to life, secrecy had become a national pastime. Every city had a lodge, every factory a brotherhood, every social class its own coded gathering. There were elks, moose, woodmen, foresters, Maccabees, names that sounded harmless, even comical. But behind the laughter were real power networks that traded jobs, contracts, and favors. To join meant opportunity. To stay out meant isolation. And while the masses organized in fraternal halls, another, subtler kind of society emerged in the drawing rooms of the powerful. The Bohemian Club of San Francisco began as an artist's refuge in the 1870s, but quickly transformed into a secret summer retreat where industrialists, bankers, and future presidents gathered among the redwoods. They called it Bohemian Grove. They claimed it was just a camping trip. Yet here, under a 40-foot owl statue, men who controlled the nation's wealth performed pagan-style rituals and plotted world affairs beside roaring bonfires. To outsiders, it sounded absurd. To insiders, it was networking in its purest form, power unbound by the eyes of the press. At the same time, in the Deep South, secret societies of a very different nature still thrived, offshoots of the Klan and White, camellia mutating into vigilante orders like the Red Shirts and White League. They wore new symbols, claimed new causes, but their message was the same: preserve control through fear. Their secrecy wasn't about mystery. It was about protection, the mask as armor. Meanwhile, universities on the East Coast refined secrecy into an art form. At Harvard, at Princeton, at Yale, the sons of governors and tycoons joined new final clubs, with names like Porcelain, Scroll and Key, Wolf's Head. But none captured the nation's imagination like Skull and Bones. By the early 20th century, its alumni filled cabinet posts, banks, and spy agencies. Photographs from the era show them posing with skulls, draped in black robes, eyes locked in eerie seriousness, as if they knew something no one else was meant to. And maybe they did. When the CIA was founded, so many of its earliest officers were bonesmen that journalists half-joked the agency was just Yale gone global. During the two world wars, secrecy became not just fashionable, but patriotic. The Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, trained its agents in deception, disguise, and ritual. Codes replaced handshakes. Passwords replaced prayers. A soldier might have no idea that the man in the next bunk once belonged to an order older than the Republic itself. After the wars, paranoia turned inward. In the 1950s, America was gripped by the Red Scare, and secret societies suddenly looked less like clubs and more like threats. Congressional hearings probed them. Preachers denounced them. Novelists imagined them manipulating everything from Hollywood to the White House. The same culture that had once worshipped brotherhood now worshipped exposure. Yet the secrecy never died. It only evolved. In the neon glow of the 1960s, when counterculture groups promised open truth and free love, the powerful retreated further underground. The Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, and Bilderberg Group became the new whispered names. To the public, they were conferences. To conspiracy writers, they were the heirs of the Illuminati. And the old symbols, the pyramid, the eye, the owl, reappeared again, stamped into architecture and currency, feeding the fire. By the 1980s and 1990s, the internet carried those whispers everywhere. Ordinary Americans, sitting in dark rooms before glowing screens, began connecting dots that may never have existed, linking Bohemian Grove to Skull and Bones, Masons to media moguls, ancient orders to new billionaires. The secret society had become an idea, a myth so vast it no longer needed members. It lived in fear itself. Still, behind the myths, real clubs continued meeting in basements, boardrooms, and candlelit halls. Their rituals might have softened. No more skeletons, no more blindfolds, but their purpose remained: belonging, influence, and the thrill of the hidden. Even today, somewhere in America tonight, a group of men and women are reciting an oath written 2 centuries ago, promising loyalty not to any flag, but to one another. And as long as there are doors to close and secrets worth keeping, the country of transparency will always have its shadow twin. Because America was built on freedom, but freedom, it seems, has always loved a locked room. By the time the 21st century arrived, America thought it had outgrown secrecy. Everything was public now. Surveillance cameras on every corner, politicians live streaming speeches, billionaires tweeting their thoughts in real time. It was supposed to be the age of transparency. But the truth is, secrecy didn't die. It adapted. The ancient lodges and candlelit halls gave way to encrypted chat rooms, private islands, and algorithmic networks invisible to the ordinary eye. The handshake became a password. The temple became the server. And the oath, that eternal promise of loyalty and silence, found new life behind screens. In Silicon Valley, power moved fast and quietly. Tech founders gathered at retreats with names like Summit Series and The Edge, claiming to reinvent humanity, but always behind closed doors. They said they were building the future. But who decided which future? The same ritual patterns re-emerged. Exclusivity, coded language, insider access. You weren't initiated with torches anymore. You were invited to private Slack channels, encrypted meets, or luxury conferences where cameras were banned. The robes were gone, but the mystery was the same. Power collecting in the dark, far from the eyes of the people it would shape. Meanwhile, the political world rediscovered the old thrill of hidden gatherings. Lobbyists and strategists met in off-record think tanks and elite clubs, where policy was drafted before the public ever saw it. The Bilderberg Group still met quietly each year. Presidents, monarchs, tech titans, discussing global trends under strict media silence. They said it was just talk. But Americans, remembering their long history of secret orders, weren't so sure. Because secrecy in America had always been a double-edged sword. It built brotherhood, but it also built paranoia. For every secret handshake that meant trust, there was another that meant control. And the digital age only magnified the tension. Online forums turned into digital lodges. Anonymous users invented symbols, rituals, even mythologies of belonging. Some became harmless fandoms. Others spiraled into radical cults of belief, secret societies without walls, influencing elections, spreading ideologies, shaping reality itself. The government responded with its own forms of secrecy, classified programs, hidden surveillance, covert cyber operations. Once again, the public saw only fragments. Once again, the real story happened where no one was looking. The irony? The founding fathers, men like Jefferson, Franklin, and Washington, many of whom had belonged to secret lodges themselves, might have understood it completely. They believed secrecy was sometimes necessary to protect freedom, but they also knew it could destroy it. Today, you don't need to wear a cloak or chant in a candlelit hall to be part of a secret society. You just need access to the data, the algorithm, the closed-door meetings where decisions are made. The symbols are still here. The all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the owl, hidden in Logos tech brands. And digital art winking from your phone screen, as if to remind you that power never leaves the shadows for long. What began as sacred oaths in stone temples has become lines of code in invisible clouds. What used to be whispered in lodges is now written in encrypted messages between billion-dollar networks. The players changed. The masks changed. But the hunger, a human need to belong to something forbidden, to touch hidden power, never left. Every generation believes it's discovered the truth. Every generation thinks the secret societies of the past are gone. But maybe they've just learned to blend in. Behind brands, behind screens, behind the smiling faces of people who claim to connect the world. The Freemasons built with stone. The skull and bones built with bloodlines. And the new elites? They build with data. All three control what people see and what they never will. So the question isn't whether secret societies still exist. It's whether we've all become part of one, trading our privacy, our choices, our secrets to systems we'll never truly understand. And as the light of your screen fades into the dark, ask yourself one thing. Who's watching you right now? And what oath do they serve?